Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests waiting to be profiled are Alison Arngrim and Sue Hamilton. Even though actress Alison Arngrim is one of the most hated characters on TV, we still decided to have her on anyway. You've seen her in Little House on the Prairie, Fantasy Island, The Love Boat. You've seen her in films and on stage. And why are you so hated?
Because I was evil. I'm sorry. I like that you said, even though I'm so hated, that you're having me on anyway. We're going to have her on anyway, even though she's... I was on Little House on the Prairie, and I was Nellie Olson, and people still refer to me as the Prairie Bitch, even to this day.
How old were you?
I was 12 when I started doing that.
How did you become such a bitch at 12?
Well, I had a hard life. Well, actually, I was very pleased that I got the role that I did, because if I'd been Laura or Mary or one of these terribly, terribly good, sweet girls, I think I would have gone out of my mind. The ability to release all of that tension and adolescent angst and everything else and just scream at people, it was really very freeing.
But were you a child actress before that? I mean, you were a child at 12.
No, they called around, they heard this girl was really bitchy. My family were all in show business. In fact,
they were?
You've heard of my mother. My mother, who died a few years ago, she did a lot of voiceover. She was the voice of Gumby, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Sweet Polly and Underdog, Davy and Goliath.
So you were in the business?
My brother's an actor. My father was in
brothers?
management. He was on Land of the Giants in the 60s. He's been on the X-Files. So the whole family worked.
And your father
also?
And
my father, Thor Arngrim, he was a manager. He used to work for Liberace, Debbie Reynolds. So it was a very show-busy family. I started working when I was about 6. I did a commercial.
So you probably really were. What was her name? What was Miss Olson's name?
Oh, Nellie Olson.
Yeah, so you probably were Nellie Olson, being on the set and being dragged around by your parents.
Well, yeah. Well, luckily, now my mother... Thank God, was not like a classic stage mother, because she had her own job. So she just kind of went, oh, nice, you got one too. Oh. And so all the other kids did have like mothers there, and many of them were really classic stage mothers who just harped on their kids. Basically, I saw my mother when I got home. My Auntie Marion took me to the set.
Is that right?
And she had been a concert soprano, but she was much more laid back and the classic. So she was like, oh, we get to go to work with Michael Landon, how nice. And so I had a much more mellow experience because I had my aunt there.
Your mother's sister?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was like taking care of you.
So she wasn't into the stage thing, she was cool. And in fact, we would sort of sit there and look on in horror as the other stage mothers acted out and did stuff, and we go, we'll never do that, right? Okay. And so I was at least spared that.
Yeah, you were spared that, but you got on and you were horrible. You were worse than
And then I was worse. So here were all these little girls who had like evil stage mothers playing these darling sweet children. And here I had my sweet Auntie Marion there, and I was so it was very strange.
It is.
But I really enjoyed it.
So it was really acting. It was really acting.
Well, people who meet me will say, you're much nicer in person than on the show. And I say, well, that's really not difficult. I would hope I'm nicer than I was on the show.
Well, there's a lot of Nellie Olson fan clubs, right?
Yes, I've heard from the Nellie Olson fan club in Tokyo, and they're all over the world. They really...
And a lot of underground culture.
Yes, if you've been on the web, there are some very interesting websites. I mean, there's a lot of Little House on the Prairie websites, but then there's sort of very strange websites. I mean, well, I have a website that actually is mine, the official Alison Arngrim Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, Nellie Olson website.
Oh, tell us about Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. That is actually a stand-up thing.
It actually is. It actually did start technically as the website. My friend Howie Green of Howie Green Design in Boston did a website for me, which has everything, pictures, behind-the-scenes stories, and there's a Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. And then I've been
Is that what they called you?
Everyone called me the Prairie Bitch. And then
at 12 years old, you get
which
to be
was really
called
weird.
A
We'd be like 12 and 13 and go to school, and people go, "Oh, I saw your show. You're like a bitch, man." I was like, okay. So I started doing stand-up comedy as a teenager, and I did right away. I had to sort of play off that, yes, I play this bitchy girl, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the last few years, if anything, it's really escalated. It has become kind of a cult thing. So what I started doing in my stand-up is I created basically a stand-up one-woman show, interactive sort of evening called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. And we take questions, and I try on the wig, and I let other people try on the wig and see if they're evil too, and they have Nellie Olson ringlets.
Do you write all the material
Yes,
yourself?
I do. It's pretty much all true. It's pretty much based on my life.
What about directing it?
So far, it's been just me.
You direct it? And
yeah, it's because it is all true. It's luckily it's like, well, write it. Well, actually, I just sort of confessed to it because it's all stuff that happened.
How many years were you on Little House on the Prairie?
7.
So, and then rerun it for 7 and 7 and 7 and 7. But did it hamper you from getting other acting jobs, do you think?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's a great character. My God, I made an impression.
Right.
And people do love it. But yeah, absolutely. I know there are situations where people have said, well, we hate her. Well, I mean, how old is she now? And she was on the prairie. And it really sets in people's minds. And I still do get called for the bitchier roles, which I don't always mind. In fact, I just recently told my new managers, I said, now, if you want to try and get me into something where I play someone nice, we can really sell that. But, you know, if they call for a bitch part, don't turn it down.
That's right. something there. You've worked a lot, and I think the work that you've done and the people you've seen in the business has really impressed you as far as being an activist. I know you've worked a lot for APLA, which is AIDS Project Los Angeles.
Correct, yes.
And how did you actually start working in that?
Well, that happened through Little House, really, because Steve Tracy, the actor who played Percival, my husband on the show, when Nellie finally got nice when she got married. I got married and mellowed out. Steve was a really wonderful person. He died of AIDS in 1986, and that's when I started volunteering at AIDS Project Los Angeles. He was lucky. His family really stood by him, and he had friends, but a lot of people don't.
Right.
So I tried to do what I could, and I still do the AIDS Project Los Angeles Summer Party fundraiser, where I host and produce the whole comedy stage and bring on the other comedians.
And where does the money actually go?
Well, AIDS Project Los Angeles has thousands of clients, men, women, and children living with HIV, and they have everything from a food bank to a dental clinic to case management. They meet individually. What do you need? What do we need to hook you up with? So it's very much a full service setup.
So that's great.
And then I'm also now on the advisory board of a group called Protect. It's a National Association to Protect Children.
That's interesting. That came out of the AIDS, children with AIDS, and
yeah, it was
things
sort
like
of
that,
metamorphed because the other group, Tuesday's Child, which I worked with
right.
for years, was a group to help families with children with HIV. And so, as I saw some of the terrible things kids were living through, and then I'd been approached by a lot of different children's charities and things, and when I was approached by the people at Protect, it was very different. They said, well, we want to help abused children, but we're going to do it in a very tough-minded fashion. It's going to be legislative. We're going to be like, the AARP or the NRA,
yes.
and we're going to go into the Capitol and really talk to legislators, say, we want you to pass this law. This law will protect children. This law won't. When people go to vote on a law in Washington or in Sacramento or anywhere else, they know that there's organizations, the NRA, the AARP, who are going to come to them and say, we'll get you a block of votes, we'll donate to your campaign. But when it comes to children's issues, there really isn't. Right. They'll get phone calls, but there isn't anyone who's going to cut off a check.
Because those kids aren't going to be voting.
The children don't vote. And that is the bottom line, is children do not vote. However, there is now an organization that indeed goes into the halls and says, you might want to rethink your vote on that issue.
Because we're behind
We
them.
will come after you.
Yeah. Which is what you've been doing.
And that's what we did. And so we're working on that. We've changed laws already in 5 states, and we're working on California and others as well.
You've been such an activist that you've gotten awards from these people.
Everybody. I do. I actually do. I have everything from a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Youth and Film people, which is funny because it's like
from Youth and
I'm
Film?
only 42 and I got a Lifetime Achievement Award. That's how old I am.
But you did your childhood.
I did
time.
my childhood time. I did enough time, and I said, you live long enough, you win a thing. But I do have a lot of awards for various AIDS organizations because I've raised money for them, and because.
But that's what you want to be recognized for, doing something good like that.
The thing is that I tell a lot of young actors, because I also do stuff with the Screen Actors Guild and the Young Performers Committee. You can use your fame. Just getting a series isn't the end. It's like, oh, you got a series. Well, goody. Okay, now you get a better car, and but you can be like Bono from U2. Probably didn't know he was going to wind up doing what he was doing. When you have that kind of fame, you do have an obligation to sort of serve people, but you also have an opportunity. the fact is, I just did the Seattle AIDS Walk for Lifelong AIDS Alliance, and they had one of the largest turnouts they've had in years. They made over goal. They had my picture on buses. And the fact
is that why, do you think?
They called me and they said, you know, we've been doing this AIDS Walk for years. Times have been hard for charities. We told people Nellie Olson was coming, and you wouldn't believe the number of people who signed up for it. We had more people sign up in the first week than we've had in ages, and the response was incredible. So because it was from Little House on the Prairie, I was able to talk to people over the last several years about AIDS, about issues they didn't want to address.
Right.
And the same thing with Protect and Child Abuse. I'm able to get on shows and talk about issues that people may not want to hear about because, well, it's Little House on the Prairie, it's Nellie Olson. So,
but that's
like,
what,
you know,
that's great that you then are a mentor to these other people coming up behind you who maybe never had that idea or never
Right.
thought they should have social issues as a cause and that they should really be doing something.
Well, I think, you know, everyone, I mean, it's the whole thing, if you're basically a citizen of this country or the world, you're
right.
supposed to, we're put here to try to sort of improve life in general.
Exactly.
And I try to sort of make, I say, or make the world a better place, or just make it not a horrible place for 5 minutes. I try to, like, do something.
Yeah.
And then when I'm handed this opportunity where, if you let us put your picture on the brochure, we can,
on the bus.
we can go save a bunch of people's lives.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Is there any question?
Right.
No, there's no question. But the last question I have for you is, you're just right underneath Joan Collins as one of the most, hated people?
When Vanity Fair did their TV Hall of Fame, I brag about this, it was a couple of years ago, but it was the Hall of Fame for Vanity Fair, and they had the best TV moms, and it was like, you know, Florence
Sweetie
Henderson and all
Beanie.
those people, the best TV cops, the best TV doctors, and it was all the famous people who played doctors. And then it said, bitches, Alison Arngrim, Joan Collins, and I was actually first. So
Oh, you were first.
I
You
was ahead
made
of
it.
Jane Wyman. I was listed as the #1 TV bitch in Vanity Fair. I was very
excuse
proud
me.
of that.
Excuse
I think it's my
me.
best award.
That is a great award. What would be next for you?
I always say I'm working on a book. I'm actually working on several books. I am working on Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, my autobiography, where I will tell everything.
Okay.
There, I've said it.
All right.
And then I'm also working on, almost done with Do As I Say, Not As I Did, a book of sarcastic dating advice.
Well, that's
Because
cool.
believe me, you should do as I say, not as I did.
We'll have you on again when you do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, fabulous.
You can give us some tips.
I'm going to plug a website, www.
Just on you.
Just on me.
Just on
W,
you. We
it's
can do
charity.
that.
It's www. Go read
Okay.
up. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with
All
us,
right.
Alison. And don't go away. We'll be right back with Sue Hamilton. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with director Sue Hamilton, who was born and raised in Southern California. She graduated from the Professional Actors Conservatory. She studied with Victor Pappas at NYU Tisch School of the Arts and Seattle's Intiman Theater, and you were on stage for 12 years. How did you change from acting to directing?
Well, it was a natural progress. It was something that felt right at the time. It was in 1996, and I'd been on stage, and I picked up a piece called Floating Rhoda and the Glue Man, which was written by an unknown playwright at the time named Eve Ensler.
Oh, Eve Ensler.
Yes, yes. So I called Eve's manager, yes, and I said, I'd really like to direct this piece. I have this small theater company in Los Angeles. I'd like to apply for the rights. And his name was Mark, and he said, oh, that's fantastic. It's never been done on the West Coast. And I said, great. So I got the rights to the West Coast premiere production of Eve Ensler's Floating Rhoda and the Glue Man.
Were you going to act in it?
No.
Or you had always decided to direct it?
I had decided that this time out I was going to not be in it. I was going to direct it. And that was my first foray into directing, and I've just stayed there.
Did she
ever
write
since.
that before Vagina Monologues?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
So you thought enough of it at that time to want to direct it?
It was a gorgeous piece. It has, I think it's 7 or 8 characters, and it explored very interesting issues of sexuality.
Even at that time?
Even at that time, that I felt had not been on stage.
Oh, that was pretty gutsy then of you.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah.
And you still didn't find a part for yourself in there?
Well, I could have played a couple of parts, but I really, really wanted to try out this directing thing, and it was something that, you know how when you're good at something and you step up and you say, I know I can do this and this is the way it's going to go, and that's exactly what happened.
That's how you felt?
Yeah, things fell into place.
But did you take any directing classes?
Nope.
So when you were at the Tisch School, when you were at the Entenmann Theater, when you were acting, you were strictly an actress.
Right, that's right.
What kind of roles were they?
Mostly young ingenues,
Oh.
mostly young girls who were losing their virginity for the first time.
Oh, so Eve worked right into you.
Yeah, exactly. I got to play Anne Frank 3 times.
Oh, so you did?
Yes, so I did a lot of regional theater and traveled around quite a bit. But it was the type of thing where I learned to be a director by being an actor. And
That's what I wondered, if a director really should be an actor.
Well, from my perspective, yes. I am truly an actor's director. I know what it is to be up there on stage and live moment to moment as a person.
Well, then the actor can really have respect for you because they know you've been in the same position.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
you directed in New York.
I did not, well, I did one
You
thing
did
in New York,
something
yes.
in New York, directed in San Francisco.
Right.
You were at the Costa Mesa. You've been all over California at different venues, doing
Right.
a lot of directing.
Yes.
How do you get a theater to direct in?
You create your own work, Joan.
Oh, you do?
You create your own work.
And then you go to a theater?
Yes, in many ways. There's many different ways of doing theater in Los Angeles, as you know. I have found my home at the LA Gay and Lesbian Center.
But you're the artistic director.
Yes,
there.
I am.
So did you do a play there first and then move into this artistic directorship?
No, it was actually an interesting match coming together with my co-producer, John Imperato. I called him, I believe it was in 1999, on a referral. I had been talking to a friend on the phone and I said, you know, as a gay woman, here's what I'm doing. I'm an artist. I'd like to take all of my talents and who I am as a person, and I'd like to give it to a venue. And a friend of mine said, oh, call John. You have to call John.
Oh, because John knew.
Right. So I called John, this person named John, who I didn't know. I didn't know who this person was at the time. And he answered the phone on the first ring, and I said, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I'd like to come meet with you. And he said, come in tomorrow.
Really?
And it was that type of thing. And I drove to the Village, and I drove.
Oh, he was already at the Village.
He was there. He was there.
I see, because
yes.
he's there with you. He used to be an actor too.
Exactly.
I see.
Yes. And I pulled up to the Village, which I had never been to in Hollywood, and it was a true. I felt like there was a wonderful meeting of the minds.
The Village is like a block of theaters and hospitality houses and things, right, in Hollywood?
Well, the Village is a part of the LA Gay and Lesbian Center.
Right, but isn't that just like a whole compound there?
Yes, it's a cultural arts complex,
It's
if you will.
great, actually.
Yes.
You can get coffee, you can sit and talk.
Right.
It's really like a meeting place.
It is. It is. That's something really nice about working there, is that it's an event when you go see theater.
So do you go there every day?
I go there every day.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I do. I have an office there.
So
Yes.
you do go there every day. They have film festivals there, don't they?
Right, yes.
So it's really a cool place in the middle of Hollywood, where if you want to meet people or talk to people who are doing things.
Exactly.
Can
we
they talk
think so.
to you?
Yes, of course they can talk to me. I'm always there.
You're always
Yes.
there. So getting this artistic directing job happened right away.
Well, it was one of those things in life that just clicked.
Same thing, like you said, being a director and
Right.
how this did.
And being able to say, these are my talents,
Right.
this is who I am, and this is what I can give to the community. Now, there's something about the lesbian community, I think, that definitely needs more culture and more art. And so what we are trying to do is fill that hole.
And in a professional way.
Exactly.
I think that's
Yes.
the key. You were a founder of LIT.
Right.
What is it?
LIT. It's Lesbians in Theater. We're going into our second season. And basically what it is it's theater that's designed for a lesbian audience.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Right.
Even directing around the state of California, where the audience is different, and how did you direct to those audiences compared to what you're doing at the Gay and Lesbian Center?
Well, I think my style is still the same.
Is it? It didn't matter what your audience was?
No, the style of being a director is there. Just like if you're an actor, you have a certain style. As a director, I have a certain style. The thing that shifted being at the Village is that I have a very specific audience that I am directing for. So I look for material that is either lesbian specific in content or theme, or material that is appealing to a lesbian audience.
So you really are more focused. Actually, you're
Yes.
very focused in that respect. So the thing that you're directing now, last summer at Bluefish Cove,
Right?
has been on the boards.
Yes.
In New York, and I
Right.
think here too in LA.
Yes, it premiered
Why-
in 1980.
And why did you bring it back?
Well, a couple months ago, 3-4 months ago now, John and I sat down and we were looking at the scope of the upcoming season for LIT, for Lesbians in Theater.
Oh, so that's actually part of Lesbians in Theater?
Yes, it is.
I see.
Yes, it is. And John said to me, what about that play, that Bluefish thing? What is that Bluefish thing? And I said, oh, yes, I have to go look at that piece. So I drove to Sam French that afternoon, got a copy of the play, went home that night, read it, and I was very moved in the reading of it. And I realized while I was reading it that I was looking at a piece of lesbian history.
But was it all older women? Wasn't it with older women when it first started, when it was first cast? Marie Cheatham was in it, I think. Do you have a young cast?
We do have a young
You
cast.
do have a young cast?
Yes.
Because I always think of that as like, over 50
No.
group of women.
No, there is one character
Oh, maybe
who
that's
is
what
over
I'm
50.
thinking of.
Yes, but the majority of the cast is late 30s, early 40s.
And is that how it was written?
Yes,
And who wrote it?
yes it is. Jane Chambers wrote the piece. It premiered in 1980. Had a very nice life in New York and also in Los Angeles. I'm sure you're aware of the Jean Smart production.
Yes, that's probably what.
Yes, and Jane Chambers actually passed away in 1983.
Soon after.
Yes, but I've had the honor of working with her former life partner, Beth Allen.
I was just going to say, was it written as a lesbian play?
Oh yes,
Definitely.
It is definitely a lesbian play through and through. It's, I think, by all intents and purposes, it is a lesbian drama, but it definitely has a lot of comedy that comes through.
But so many of those plays can be drama.
Exactly.
Lots of drama involved. I
Yes.
mean, even in Eve's pieces,
Right.
which aren't. Do you look at those as being lesbian pieces?
No, I don't. I look at Eve's pieces as being very fluid in terms of sexuality. I think Eve does a beautiful job of presenting the fluidity of who we are as sexual beings. Jane Chambers was very specific in the writing of lesbian drama and comedy.
Oh, she was?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Bluefish Cove.
Last Summer at Bluefish Cove is a piece that involves 8 women. 7 of them are gay, and 1 comes into this colony and she's straight. And it's 1980, and that's a big deal that this straight woman has sort of happened upon the cove. And it's shocking. And they're all in, sort of disarray that this straight woman has arrived, and she's upper class and she's gorgeous, and of course she falls in love with our lead character, and they have a relationship.
But they didn't expect any of
No,
this
no,
to
no,
happen,
of course
right?
not, of course not. It's drama. No, of course not.
So she does.
Yes.
And how did you cast these people?
We did the regular casting call. We went through the sort of
Do they come to you
regular
at the
routine.
Village?
Yes, they come to us at the Village. I saw over I think it was over 150 women for this play, and as always, the cream sort of rose to the top very early in the process, and I was able to select an amazing cast. We have an amazing cast.
And have they acted around Los Angeles?
Yes.
Most of them?
Oh,
have
yes.
they?
A lot of them have acted in New York, Los Angeles. One of them is a stand-up comic by trade, Kathy Ladman, but she's doing this piece, and she's fantastic.
And who's the other person who comes in the over 50 person?
That is that role.
Oh, that is that role?
That is that role,
Oh,
yes.
so she really has an acting job to do, right?
Yes.
And then who else do you have in it?
Nicole Marks is playing the lead. A woman named Libby West is playing her lover. Peggy Goss is playing the closeted doctor.
Has she been on the stage?
All of them have.
Yeah, they
yes.
all have, yeah.
All of them
Because
have.
I'm recognizing the names.
Yes. Karis Morgan Moyer is also part of the cast. She came to us through, I think it was Beth Henley that referred her, as you know, another playwright.
Great playwright. So that's fun about being a director, though, is reading all these great playwrights and finding something that you actually can associate yourself with.
Right.
Do you have a long list of people that you want to work?
Oh, yes, and I always have the long list. But the nice thing about what I do is that when I work with people, it usually ends up that I want to work with them again, and they want to work with me again. So it quickly becomes a family when
How do
you're
you
doing a
do
piece.
that? How do you do that?
What do you
have
mean?
like 8 people up there. How do you keep them all together? Aren't you having any clashes or anything going
No,
on?
not yet. Not yet. I'll call you if I do, but no.
It does. So it's actually, it has to depend on you and your
Yes.
personality.
Right.
And the way you treat them.
It's true. I think a lot of the energy in the space is created by the director. And I think if you are creating an environment that is warm, supportive, but challenging and professional, you're going to ask for a certain type of performer. You're not going to get the other types of performers. You're going to get exactly what you ordered.
And what you want, because you're looking for that, and they know what you want.
Exactly.
Is there something like this in New York, the Village?
I don't know. I don't think so. We like to say that the Village is one of a kind. And one of a kind meaning that it's a cultural arts complex that attracts gay men and women to professional arts. I haven't been able to find an equivalent.
What I was going to say is because if you had like the Village East Coast,
Yeah.
you could go back there and start the whole thing and
Right.
work together.
Well, it's a great idea.
That's going to be your next job.
It's a great idea.
Thank you for coming on,
Oh, thank you
Sue.
for having me, Joan.
Thanks for watching Sue Hamilton, the great director here. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, 917.